All right, hey everybody. This is Marcus Amaker here at the Gilliard Center. I'm excited about this edition of Raising the Volume. It's very cool that we've kept this program going for a couple of years now, and I guess we're just going to keep on going because we have access to really important and lovely people. So on my left here is Kimberlyn Davis, who is a friend and somebody who I've been working with for a while as well. So I'm excited for you all to get to know her. So, hello.
Hello. It's good seeing you again.
Yeah.
Post-pandemic.
Yeah, thank you.
First time in almost 3 years.
Yeah, I know, right? That's, wow. Random question. What have you done for self-care?
Oh, gosh.
Today?
Today?
Today.
Nothing, if I'm honest.
Okay, all right. Or
if
what?
I'm honest, absolutely nothing.
Or what will you do for self-care?
But what will I do? I think after this, I'm going to go on a nice bike ride. Got a new Peloton, and so I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to take maybe 30 minutes to kind of decompress by looking at, taking a ride throughout whatever scenic place comes up, and just really just zoning out on that. Just give me 30 minutes to kind of decompress on a bike.
Yeah, that is perfect.
Yeah.
I like that. I always love hearing what people's definition of self-care is. I think that's important. So.
Yeah, you kind of threw me a monkey wrench there because I really wasn't expecting that question first off. But I think it completely, that question is so important because we've just are coming off of a pandemic. And but I think more importantly than that, if I could say, is that we all get so wrapped up in our kids and our family life and business and so forth and so on that we do forget to exhale and take care of ourselves. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I often think about that, especially with people who are doing important work, and you are doing really important work right now as the executive director of the Emanuel 9 memorial that's going to happen. So talk about that. How did you get involved with this huge project? Like the memorial for the Emanuel 9, when it is done, is going to be a global experience for a lot of people. So how did you get involved with that, being the executive director?
So long story short, because I think there's so many long stories here in Charleston, but it was kind of one of those things where I was kind of at the right place at the right time. Obviously, I was down here in Charleston when the tragedy struck, and was, around some of the family members, the victims, the survivors. So I had some familiarity with the topic. So that's kind of how it happened. I kind of rose my hand and said, hey, I can do this. I can lead this project. And you're right. It is a very important project. I think that when we go back to that day, that awful day, we think about what the temperature of the city was and how hot it was. We think about, obviously, the tragedy that happened. And then we think about the fact that one of the family members forgave Dylan Roof, and it really took all the humidity, all the heat out of the air, and it was like, wow. And it really made me look at my Christianity. It made me look at myself, and I'm sure it did for others as well. So yeah, and I know you've been on the road with me on this project, and we talk about the importance of this memorial. It's important to our community because I think that oftentimes when tragedy happens to our community, the narrative of forgiveness is thrust upon us, just like this one was. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's right. But oftentimes with forgiveness comes forgetting. And it is my mission to make sure that the Emanuel 9 and the survivors are not forgotten. Other tragedies that have happened around this country, like 9/11, we always say never forget, but oftentimes when it happens to the Black community, it's always, oh, we have to forgive and move on, or forget.
Yeah.
And we're not going to let that happen.
Good. And we've had a lot of talks about the people who have not forgiven,
Yes.
and I think that that's an important narrative for me, is just to remind people, and not in any way that's being like anti or negative. It's just truth.
It is truth.
So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, the fact that a lot of people don't talk about the fact that anger is okay to have in this scenario. Like and if we're having a hard time forgiving, that's fine as well. Like, what are your...
I can't imagine how the family members feel. I can't imagine how the survivors feel.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to, really comment on their emotions. I just know what my emotions were that day. And for someone to be able, a family member to say that they forgave Dylan Roof after what he did. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It is very powerful, but at the same time, for those, it's equally as powerful for those family members who have not forgiven. And for them to say, you know what, I haven't forgiven. And it's okay.
It's okay.
It is okay to have that emotion still and to feel that way.
Yeah.
And we're here to support you.
Yeah. Yeah, I often think a lot about us as Black folk. Like, I think that we do have some sort of superpowers, really. But I do think that people expect us to sort of like lead them and guide them on how to handle tragic events like this. And sometimes we just don't know, and it's wonderful to see examples of people, forgiving and being able to unpack what's going on. But also, this is like generational pain, and it's a lot of trauma that we've held in our bodies and in ourselves, and so it's just an interesting thing to really confront it in that way, but also let people be okay with what they're feeling, because I'm a parent, you're a parent, and if my daughter is angry, I'm not gonna like shun that. I'm gonna be like, all right,
That's right.
You're angry. Let's talk about this. So.
And I think we're probably in the first generation where we admit that we've got feelings, right? And we want to talk openly about our emotions. I mean, I think in the past, previous generations, maybe that didn't happen as much, but our generation, the generations that are following us, it is all about how we are feeling. Let's step back and let's kind of press the pause button and let's discuss our emotions. And I think that that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's more than okay. I think it's great. And I think that, one thing that I have found as I have, I guess, gotten older and kind of reflected back, and the number of people that I've lost, personal friends from high school, from college to suicide, is just staggering. We don't talk a lot about that in the Black community. So yeah, let's talk about our emotions. Let's talk about that anger. Let's talk about that forgiveness and what it means to you. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah. So it's so interesting to me, even working with you on this. I don't understand all that it takes to run a memorial, that's about to be built. So yeah, for people who don't know, so we've gotten Michael Arad, who did the 9/11 memorial, to do this memorial for us here. I imagine that can be quite a bit of work. I don't want to assume anything. I'll let you talk about that. But what is it like to be the spearhead, like be the person that is making this happen, making the memorial happen?
It's an honor. And I'll just start there. I mean, it really is an honor. Yes, it is some work, but it's a labor of love because it's something that I want to see completed. It's an honor to work with a gentleman who developed the 9/11 memorial. It is quite the honor to work with Reverend Manning, who's the pastor of Mother Emanuel AME Church, and he's also the co-chair. So I mean, it is quite the honor to be in the position that I'm in, but also I'm determined to get it done.
Yeah.
And I want to see this monument erected, and I want to see it done right. I want us to after the monument is done, it's completed, I want us to continue to have these conversations about feelings. I want us to continue to have these conversations about love. And I definitely want us to have the conversation about the elephant that nobody wants to talk about, the elephant in the room, which is racism. I think for centuries, we just have not had that honest dialogue and conversation about racism. This country has such a dark past. And I think that we are kind of stuck with some folks wanting to educate each other on our past, but other people not wanting to educate, or they want to, what I would say, our history looks like a black cup of coffee. But a lot of those folks that don't want to educate want to keep adding the sugar and a lot of cream to that coffee to make it more palatable. But we have to tell the story. We can't live in nostalgia land. We have to tell what actually happened, the facts. So, and that's what drives me.
It's beautiful. So what do you hope for the future, like, let's see, 32 years from now, when somebody's coming to visit this spot, like, what do you hope they get out of it?
Well, there's a lot of things, actually. And even now, people going to the church, they look up at the church and just, they're amazed by the architecture, but they are also thinking about the 9 that are no longer with us. And they are standing in solidarity with us against hate and racism. And they're doing that on a sidewalk, and I'm afraid they're going to hurt themselves because they step off the sidewalk and they go right into traffic on Calhoun Street. So I want to get them off of Calhoun Street and into the memorial. But I want that conversation to continue. I want that contemplation of them looking inside of themselves and saying, "Hey, what can I do to make this world better? How can I open my heart to others, maybe to people who don't look like me, so that this world could be better? And how can I look at my fellow neighbor as a human, not as someone of a different race, a different, sex, what have you, just as a person?" And I think it goes back to really those Christian values that this country says they have. And really executing on that. But I think besides that, I want people to get hope and inspiration. I want people to realize that what has happened to the church, not just the tragedy, but what happened when they opened the doors to the church in 1818, when Denmark Vesey, who was a member of the church, he led a slave revolt. And because he led the slave revolt and was affiliated with the church, they burned it down. I want them to think about the fortitude that the members of that church had building that church back up post, Civil War era. I want them to think about everything that they went through, the members of that congregation went through during the Civil Rights era, when Martin Luther King was there to talk about equal rights, when Booker T. Washington stopped by. Obviously there was a hurricane that came through, Hugo, and then there was the tragedy that happened. And through it all, the church is still standing. So the church is a survivor too. And if there's anything that I've gotten out of this and what makes me determined is that hope and inspiration comes from all of that. That church, the members of the congregation continue to inspire me through their actions of love, through their actions of kindness. And then just hope that tomorrow's better. We pray that tomorrow's is better. We pray for people to really start looking at us on the basis of our humanity.
Yeah, that's great. And I just think, I know when I visited the 9/11 memorial a few years ago. Just the heaviness of it, the energy there is crazy. Like it's almost like it's like this like physical force that is there. And I know whenever I'm even just near the church, I feel that energy. And I have a feeling that this memorial, especially the way that it's going to be built, there will be a lot of opportunity for people just to sit in it and contemplate and
That's right. And pray. And I'm
I
not
think
saying that if you're not Christian that you can't come to the memorial, because that's not it. We welcome all faiths. We're going to welcome all faiths and religions, backgrounds. We want everybody to be there. So this isn't such a Christian thing as much as it is a people thing. We welcome everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So how is your it's so interesting to me, like your background. You've done a lot of corporate stuff. Was Coca-Cola for you?
Yes, with Coca-Cola and Bank of America.
Okay.
Yes.
So not to laugh, but
Yeah.
but yeah, how was that experience versus this? Because it's completely a different thing in my mind.
Absolutely. So this is my first kind of putting my toe into the water for nonprofits. And so the jobs that I had with let me go back to Coca-Cola. Jobs that I had with Coca-Cola were pretty much focused around multicultural marketing.
Okay. All
And
right.
so that really is where my heart is, and really trying to ensure that that African Americans are represented in marketing materials, and that our dollar is being valued. So I really started off really young at Coca-Cola, and some of my work took me down here in Charleston 20 some odd years ago. But it was very fun. I had a great time. And one of the things I learned from my experience at Coca-Cola, and you're probably going to laugh at this, is a term that I still use today, which is fighting alligators with toothpicks.
Okay.
Because it really is every day. It's not a battle, I wouldn't say that, but it is every day trying to get people to understand and realize the value of Black people.
Okay.
And
Imagine that.
oftentimes, people want to downplay us, and they want to minimize us,
Yeah.
and they want to diminish us and act as if we don't exist. Whether it's, hey, Black people don't have enough money to buy Coca-Cola. No, that's in your head.
Yeah.
So yes. So after I got tired of working with Coca-Cola, which they were wonderful, I should say.
Bless their hearts. Yes.
Bless their hearts. I went to Bank of America, and I did small business marketing, and then I segmented over into CRA and multicultural marketing for home ownership and first-time home buyers. So again, another opportunity for me to work on the multicultural side, really understand home ownership rates, not just for African Americans, but Hispanics, Asian Americans, and I kind of did that during the housing crisis that happened.
Okay.
Excuse me, about 12 years ago, maybe a little longer than that.
Wow.
So that was very interesting. But at the same time, I was actually able to develop financial literacy programming.
Okay.
And
Cool.
That's something that's near and dear to my heart. Just continue to help us understand the rules of the game when it comes to banking. Unfortunately, in our communities, as you know, payday lenders have just preyed on us and in our communities for decades.
Yeah.
And it's really a shame that there isn't more of a bank representation in our communities. So, yeah.
And I have to be honest, one of the reasons I asked the self-care question up front is because I just know a lot of the work that you've done. And in my mind, that would be, it would be a challenge, to stay hopeful. And when you're behind the scenes and seeing all this stuff, especially from a corporate standpoint, because you see how things work. I had a glimpse of that at the paper, and I worked at the Post and Courier.
Yes.
And it was just interesting just to see what the default thinking was, and you almost have to poke somebody to be like, oh, look, you can expand your mind,
Right.
and just look at the world for what it is instead of what you think it should be or what you think it might be. So yeah, I just I applaud people like you who are able to work behind the scenes and do that stuff, but also knowing that you can't be a warrior 1,000% because like you're gonna have too many scars. Like
And I
it's just too
think
much.
acknowledging that there are some days that I'm not Superwoman.
Hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Imagine that. You
I
are
know,
human.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some days where I have a hard time juggling it all, and I don't mind saying that. There are some days where I'll just say I have PTSD from just being a black woman and being in corporate America as a black woman because they oftentimes want you to fit in a box.
Yeah. Right.
And they want you to look a certain way. They want you to, say certain things. But when you kind of get out that box and you start saying things that they don't expect you to say or call them out,
Hmm.
you got to be prepared for those consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true.
And often those consequences may be, oh, she's an angry black woman, or, you can get fired.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, I don't fit into your box.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a lot of confidence to kind of, get to that point where you're like, I just don't care anymore. I'm going to be my authentic self. If I want to go to carpool pickup with my afro, if I want to, go to work with my afro or what have you, if I want to, wear my shirt that says unapologetically black and have people question, my ethnicity, whatever, I don't care. I'm confident. I'm there. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And I can tell, I feel like, and then your kids are going to pick up on that as well.
I mean, we've had many a Zoom calls, and you've probably seen me glam sometimes, and the other times you're just like, okay, Kim just woke up.
It's all good. Yeah. I never judge.
I'm at that point where I just, it's time for me to be authentic with myself. I tell my kids to be authentic. I challenge others to be authentic, and it's time for me to be the same way.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess, students and stuff, what advice or what would you even tell them? It doesn't have to be advice, but let's say there's a student watching who really wants to be involved with social justice or changing the culture, things like that. What kind of advice would you give to a student?
Oh, gosh. That's a great question. And they have considerably a lot more energy than I do.
Yeah.
I would tell them to run. Yeah, and do what they want to do. And I mean, I'm saying this in such a general term, but I mean, I feel like the generation that we grew up in, there was like a lot of strings and, handcuffs, if you will. Like people are telling us where to move and how to move, but I don't feel like that is happening anymore. I feel like the internet and just how things are with social media has completely knocked down a lot of those barriers that were up for us earlier in our careers.
Yeah.
And I feel like for them, this generation that's in college right now, that they're not going to be, complacent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
They're really going to start kind of changing the landscape of politics, the look and feel of politics.
Yeah.
I can't see the status quo being the status quo anymore. So while they're young and they got all this energy, I would tell them to just run. And whether it's, for social justice programs or even political, go and get you that seat on the board at 22, 23 years old. Do it. They say no. So what? It's just a no.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, I definitely think that's true. I didn't really think about that until now, so thank you for making me aware of that. But I do think that, when I was younger, like it was almost like you accepted the way that things are, and at least I felt powerless to change things. And I definitely, at least the politically aware students who I'm, in contact with, they definitely do not feel powerless because they have these tools available to them. And I'm definitely encouraging, students to use their voice. There's so many ways to use your voice to let people know what's going on. And it's unfortunate that, the way that voting is now, it's so mucky, and Tuesday you can't do it online, all this stuff. But I don't see that being a thing in the future.
I don't either.
Yeah, I think that things are going to change, and I'm hoping that happens sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
we could totally turn this political.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is the last stand. Like this is totally the last stand, and things are just going to start to change. They're going to start to change fast. You know, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on abortion and you know, and some of those issues that have been, gosh, debated for the last 60, 70 years. I just don't think this generation behind us is going to have any patience for that. Like, why are we still debating something like this?
Yeah, and especially, I mean, like, you know, in my mind, I think debating it is one thing, but the way to change it is there's so many layers, and you have to do this and do that, and it's such a stuffy thing to change. Like, you know, it should just be, in my mind, and I'm naive and I'm a hippie, but you know, we do so many things on our phone. Like, why can't we vote? And I mean, if you put that power into more people's hands, like, what will really change? And it'll actually be like the laws will be more of a reflection of what's going on. And it's not that it has to be online, because a lot of people might not have access to, you know, to that.
Yeah.
But to make it easier, more accessible.
That's right.
Makes sense to me.
That's right. I think you're right, and I think that we are doing, you know, e-commerce. All of our banking is happening off of our phones now.
Yeah.
So is voting going to be that last stand? You know,
I think so.
It probably is, but I mean, they're going to get so much pushback.
They're holding on to that.
They're
like
holding
super
on
tight.
to it.
Super tight.
I think the old guard is just holding on to these last few issues. That when this next generation comes, they're just not going to have any of it.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any patience for it. You know, climate change. You know, we could talk about climate change. We could talk about, you know, the electric vehicles that are coming out and how exciting that is. I mean, they are driving that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
It is cool.
Yeah, so what is, I guess, next for the memorial, next for you, like, as you know, as we wrap this up? But is there anything else that you would like to add as far as what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, next for the memorial, we will be groundbreaking in 2023. But, you know, obviously we will continue to fundraise and shape our social justice programs. And we'll continue to do that. Hopefully we'll have an opening / dedication of the memorial in 2024. And so that's kind of the immediate next steps for the memorial. And then for me, you know, just kind of keep moving forward. And I think what's in my near future is continuing to educate myself, reading books. The book that I'm reading right now is How the Word is Passed Down from Clint Smith. It talks about this gentleman, the author, going to various plantations across the country and notating exactly what happened. So understanding and continuing to understand our complete history. No matter how awful it is, and continue to stand up for ourselves. Where I see fit, or whomever sees fit, doing some financial education, literacy, continuing to, you know, work with you and others, bringing in talent to the city to have these frank conversations about racism. You know, continue to document the church's history. Just kind of turn this kind of ship around a little bit. And
it's cool. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
With us, and we'll have a link to the Emanuel 9 Memorial underneath the video here. Thank you all for being a